Well, hello, NABJ family. This is Byron Pitts, lifetime member of NABJ and a proud part of the ABC News family. We're having this hour-long conversation with my colleagues from ABC News and fellow members of NABJ who've contributed to this groundbreaking special tonight that airs on ABC News at 10 Eastern, Soul of a Nation. I'd like to introduce my colleagues, my family here at ABC News. Sunny Hostin, co-host of The View here at ABC News. Hey, Sunny.
Hey.
Eric Johnson, executive producer of Soul of the Nation. What up, Eric?
Hey, Byron.
And Marie Nelson, senior vice president, integrated content strategy, ABC News. Hey, sister.
Hello.
I'd like each of you. I mean, this is family talking tonight, so we all know each other. But for those who may not know each of us as well, a brief introduction. Sunny, tell folk about you and your initial thoughts of being a part of this historic project.
Well, I mean, when I got the call from Marie, I think this is very much Marie's brainchild. To say that I was ecstatic, right, Marie, is an understatement. You know, I'm a kid from the South Bronx projects who was, I don't know, lucky enough to make it out of my circumstance, to go to college, to go to law school. And honestly, I did not learn about African-American history, which is really American history, until going to college. And I had to supplement all of that information on my own. I took one African-American history class when I was in college. And so much of it for me is self-taught and from my own desire actually to learn more. And I was so thrilled when Marie described the project to me, that this was for us, by us, but for a diverse audience so that we could teach others about our learned experience, which is very much everyone's, should be everyone's learned experience about American history. And I'm just so thrilled to be able to share my portion of this incredible enterprise, which is sort of in the kitchen, which is, you know, just discussions that we have around our kitchen tables, I think, and just, you know, open it up to everyone. And I'm so excited. I can't begin to tell you because we really get real, at least in the kitchen. And I think many people will see themselves in our discussions.
That's exactly right. And we're gonna show a little taste of In the Kitchen in a bit. Sunny, thank you so much. Eric, you're the co-executive producer of this project. It's daunting to bring to executive produce any network program, but you're co-executive producing a historic program. What's that like for you?
Well, right now it's very stressful because the show it airs tonight, and we are still putting it together as we speak. And so, you know, that's you know, it's very exciting. You know, I've been at ABC News for 14 years. I guess you could call me an ABC News baby. I started at ABC right after grad school as a sort of a PA. I was an assistant to the anchors at Nightline. I mean, assistant to the senior producers at Nightline. And I went on to become a producer and moved around at ABC a lot. I've been a senior producer there. I've been senior broadcast producer of GMA and at Nightline. Obviously, Byron, we worked very closely together there. And my latest job, I'm executive producer of podcast programming at ABC News. And so when I have my own Marie story, much like Sunny, when Marie came to me last year, you know, I was like, she's like, I have an idea, you know, and I was like, oh man, what is this? And that had to be, Marie, I don't even know, September. And, you know, we were talking about this, Marie and I, and Robe, the co-executive producer alongside me, where he's like a brother to me now, the three of us really mind melded on what we were trying to do with this. From the beginning, we just wanted what we do is tell stories. And that's all of my jobs at ABC. That's the thing that we all love doing, is telling people stories. And we get the opportunity right now to tell stories about Black people in ways that I don't think you've seen necessarily on other platforms, certainly not on network news. And so, we're going to talk a lot more about soul in this conversation. We're excited to have these uncomfortable conversations that Sunny is talking about, and have these segments that go really deep into issues and have a lot of fun, because the show is fun as well. You see the expansive view of the Black experience. And that's why we're so excited to talk about this project today.
Marie, Sunny and Eric both said it, that this is your child. This was your vision initially, that you had the courage of your convictions to not just to bring to us, but to bring to ABC News and to Walt Disney. Say more.
Well, Byron and everyone, all I can say is that I'm having the most intense full circle moment right now. Sunny started off a little bit talking about her origin story, and I think that that's probably something that is a real point of connection. Like, if we were each to drill down into the things that have motivated us and encouraged us to be a part of this storytelling journey. But the full circle moment for me is that I actually came to journalism as a second career. I spent the first 10 years or so working in the world of foreign policy. And, arrived at this space where it was so frustrating to be in parts of the world, especially Africa, where these intense things were happening. This was right after the Rwandan genocide. There was a lot happening. And to just know that those stories weren't reaching these shores in the way that I felt like they needed to. And so that was what encouraged me, after being in a pretty comfortable space in my career, to take the risk and to come into broadcast journalism. And it was ABC News that gave me that shot. And so I came to ABC News as a fellow, and had the opportunity just to dive in, not knowing anything about what it really took to do this work, but believing that I could grow into it. And I have to say that when I think about now, all these years later, coming back here and coming back in a way where we're being super intentional about the stories we tell, the people we enable to tell those stories, and amplifying and lifting up the voices so that we are taking those stories with us into every space that they should be in. That for me is, it is the absolute culmination of the dreams that I didn't even know to have for myself. Mm-hmm. And so being able to do that with all of you, I couldn't be, I don't tell my kids, but I think I may be more excited tonight than I was to go into labor. Definitely more excited than going into labor.
NABJ family, we'd like to show you a clip of the show tonight, just to give you a taste of what you'll see tonight and the nights to come. So let's roll that.
America's finally ready for this. Soul of a Nation. A show by Black people for all people about the Black experience in America.
Revolutionary.
Unfiltered.
Breath of fresh air.
So much humor. It will be powerfully great.
Soul
of a Nation.
Of a nation. Of a nation.
Soul of a Nation. The most revolutionary launch ever by any major network.
I am the voice amongst many brave Americans.
All the pain, all the joy, unafraid.
You're a Black woman.
Yes.
You're a Christian.
Yeah, I am.
You're also a strong advocate for abortion rights.
Yes.
Is that a conflict?
To other people.
Funny.
I should know which one's key and which one's peeled.
Beautiful.
When I think about the Black family, I think about love.
Truthful.
The only answer.
That's a big word. The only legislative response for us is reparations.
Intimate.
coming to the land, dealing with my family. It's my business. It's my business to be able to heal and move forward.
All of a sudden, it's like, whoa, I didn't know that. It's like, yeah, I know you didn't know that. That's what we was trying to tell you.
It's time to go there, taking viewers inside the lived experience.
Play ball and be quiet. Like, when you hear that, that's disrespectful. You know what I'm saying?
Of Black America.
How did you react in real time?
Oh, I celebrated. What? And I kept on getting nervous. I'm like, it's for real, right?
Provocative.
Use the word terrorist.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They tried to disrupt this country's democracy. That was their goal. And you know what? Y'all failed.
Cinematic, unapologetic, uplifting.
Black history is your history as well as it is my history.
Impossible to look away from.
You sometimes take these moments for granted, and I'm grateful for them.
Real stories.
You are the grandson of sharecroppers, people who were a generation away from slavery.
Real conversation.
I definitely was canceled. There's still people to this day threatening to boycott, but even threatening me and my family in general.
And there will be music.
What do you think is so important about using music as a message right now?
Coming Tuesday nights, this March to ABC.
Soul.
Soul of a nation.
Soul of a nation.
Soul of a nation.
We're ready.
I just love that. And I love when the brother turns to the camera and says, y'all failed. Right? So we'll start a conversation, and we're going to talk amongst ourselves for about a half hour or so, and then we'll open up, or maybe 20 minutes or so, and open up to questions to our colleagues and family members from NABJ. First question to you, Marie, and guys, feel free to weigh in if you want. But Marie, how do you get something like this greenlit, approved?
Well, you know, this is where it's a good thing coming into this experience with you know, some history in politics. Because it's about coalition building. It's about coalition building, and it's about seizing a moment and seizing an opportunity. And I think that we can all agree that that we knew that there was this seismic shift that had happened, and that we were in this moment of opportunity for you know, advancing the chance to tell some of these stories. And so in the earliest of days, it was really about figuring out what we thought the best platform was to tell these stories. And I think that very early on, we were bullish on the idea that this news magazine should be a broadcast property. We know that, of course, all of our businesses are racing toward not just a streaming future, but actually a streaming present. But in truth, we also know that there are still significant linear audiences within the African-American community who rely on primetime for all sorts of things, and that they were already showing up for us.
Yeah. Was there much pushback?
No.
And just to hop on there, and I'll tell you, because I was there, and I wish people could see how well Marie did in that moment when we were bringing this to the network, and there wasn't a lot of pushback because it was a great. We went in organized. We have a great idea. We had an idea that we knew and we were confident that we would be able to deliver on, which we will tonight. And the information that Marie has on the growing audience, we went in there with information, and so I think she and I left that meeting feeling excited about, wow, we have a real opportunity here. And I think that they sense that enthusiasm. And so and I don't want to speak for Marie, we felt good about it from the beginning all the way through. And when it was greenlit, we were excited to hit the ground running.
So,
well, you know, the thing is, you know, Marie is a force. Anyone that's worked with her, you know that. She has a vision, she's a force. Eric is a force. He's been at ABC for so long. He sort of, you know, knows how the system works. I think the two together are so powerful. But the other thing is, the facts matter. I remember testifying in front of Congress about whether or not cameras should be allowed in the Supreme Court and in courtrooms across the country. And my argument was the people that are most affected by the judicial system are African Americans. And guess what? We consume media more than any other group in this country. So the business case has been made for the viewership of this type of concept. We will watch if we have the programming that is made for us. It's almost sort of like, what was that Kevin Costner movie? If you build it, they will come. It's sort of like, yeah, it's sort of like that. If you build it, they will come. So the argument generally by the networks is, what about the viewership? It's about the business case. Will advertisers buy the ad space? Will there be viewership? Marie, as an executive in this space, knows that we have the viewership, because I think it was Byron that sort of led the coverage for our Juneteenth coverage for ABC. That blew away the numbers, right? So we already had a track record. ABC knew that if you build it, we will come, because there is a thirst in our community for stories for us, by us. Because again, this is our history, but it's also American history. It's just such a great time for this.
Sonny, I wanted to ask you a follow-up question. It relates to something that Marie talked about earlier in her background, right? The work that she did in politics before journalism. It reminds me of a conversation at ABC News that we had with the executive team from NABJ, and Dorothy Tucker raised the great point that Black journalists come from a wealth of different kinds of experiences that they can contribute. They may not have a skill set that's recognized by traditional models, but can contribute. I think about you, Sonny, your background as a lawyer, and how you use those skills so effectively on The View. And because of your work at The View and how you engage daily in social issues, do you think America is ready for what we're about to show them tonight?
They better get ready. No, I often say that I think we are in a time, Byron, and you and I talk about this often, unlike no other, right? We're facing these multi-crises. You've got this global pandemic that's a crisis, this economic crisis, a racial reckoning that's a crisis, policing that's a crisis. And all of those crises are affecting our community disproportionately. This is America. And that's a question that Harry Dunn, the police officer, the Capitol police officer, that is asked by our own Pierre Thomas. Is this America? Well, yeah, this is America. And I think that I know our community is ready to face it. We want to hear more about what we are dealing with. And I think that if we're being honest, we are in this sort of inescapable network of mutuality. Those aren't my words, those are Dr. King's words, right? His letter to a Birmingham jail. I mean, if you're in this inescapable network of mutuality and you're tied in a single garment of destiny, then what affects one directly affects us all indirectly. Then we need to be ready for a show like this that is Marie's brainchild, that Byron, you are shepherding. We are ready for it and we need it. Right?
The thing I always point to,
Dr. Bishop, Sonny Hostin. I think we just.
I know, right? A single garment of destiny.
Right? Those aren't my words. Those are Dr. King's words.
But the one thing I wanted to say, just to amplify that point, is that yes, absolutely. We walked into these conversations with receipts. We know that we were performing number one in our time slots when we were focusing and servicing these audiences. And we knew that a significant reason for that was because more Black viewership was showing up. But what I always point to is for every single one of those specials or or the 2-hour we did for 2020 on Breonna Taylor, or, you know, our celebration of Chadwick Boseman. For every single one of those times we've showed up big like that, at least 50% of those audiences have been white.
That part.
You know, so we knew that that Black audiences were going to come to this because they wanted that shock of recognition. They wanted to see their lives treated with dignity and respect and consideration. But we also knew that white audiences are looking for a way in. You know, and I'm reminded, you know, Rachel Scott, who is one of our powerhouse correspondents, she's our congressional correspondent. She's been kicking, you know what, and taking numbers. But there's a story that she shared after the insurrection on January 6th. She had been covering for the last couple of years the Trump campaign, and she had maintained a relationship with a Trump supporter who, for years had been arguing with her that there wasn't an issue in terms of racial discrimination in America, that he didn't see that. And that same person wrote her a personal letter after January 6th to say, how could I have been so blind? So even in those pockets and even in those places, there's the opportunity for people to be confronted with the truth in a way that they can understand it more deeply.
Eric, if you would, two questions in one, if I may. One, tell us what's in tonight's program. And I love this concept that you shared with us early on about how this was going to be like you want us to take ownership of this, like this was a Black family reunion. So what's in tonight's show, and what's this reunion theme that you were pushing?
The reunion theme, yes. So you know, tonight's show, it's on in a few hours, and I hope everybody on this call watches. It is what Robe is to kind of coin the phrase we've been using, like news variety show for our audience, right? And so it opens with, and you can actually see how we start the show right now. If you go to the rapper Common's Instagram page, he shared his spoken word. We have a minute introduction to what Soul of a Nation is through his verse, which is excellent. That's how we kick off the show. Sterling K. Brown brings us all these, he hosts the show. He brings us all of these incredible stories. We kick things off with that interview between Pierre and Officer Harry Dunn. We saw a taste of this last week, but I want people to know what you are going to see tonight is not just a sit down interview that you would typically expect. You are watching two Black men connect about what America is, using January 6th as a proxy, using Officer Dunn's own experience as a wider story. And you connect with him deeply, and you connect with Pierre in that story as well very deeply. We're very excited to bring that to this audience. We think it's a great way into what we're trying to do here. We have a piece from Adrienne Bankert on the intersection between art and activism. She sits down with John Legend, who's been very active over this past year especially. In the third spot, we've got your great piece, Byron, on reparations in the town in Evanston, Illinois, that has actually already put reparations out there front and center. They have been approved. The thing I love about that story is typically when we do these stories, it's Black people want them, white people don't like them. And yes, that is a story, and that's a story we should continue to cover. What I like about what we're trying to bring here is getting into these nuances. So this is already going on in Evanston. And the dispute, the tension in the story is actually about, is it enough? Is it enough for the injury of slavery? It's not just this sort of typical Black and white story that you're getting, and you draw that out very well. We've got Sunny, we shot these over the past, we shot 2 this weekend, these in the kitchens, which were a blast. I don't know how we got that shrunk down to like 6.5 minutes. God help us, but we did it. And those are excellent. They're a lot of fun, but the message and the story coming out of it, Sunny asked this great question. What is the moment you realize you were Black? I don't want to give it away. You'll see a little bit of that later. And then we've got a piece from The Undefeated that gets into reckonings in film. and we've got a performance by John Legend. And so just to get to the family reunion part of this, Byron, we want everybody to come to the kitchen. We want everybody to feel the variety in what we're doing. We want Black people to see themselves in our stories. Like I said this before, my family, my brother, my mother, I want them to see themselves in the story, but we also want everybody to see themselves in Black storytelling. The thing I always say, Byron, and you've taken my line, and it wasn't even mine, somebody else on the team said this, which I thought was an excellent metaphor of this show is, a family reunion, we love when the Black folks come together. We're happy with we want white people to come on in. We'll give you, the food's here, enjoy it. But, we're going to have that corner slice of the mac and cheese for ourselves. And, so that's the sort of the takeaway with the show is it's something for everybody, but we really do hope we connect with that Black audience, but with everybody. We want everybody to enjoy the mac and cheese that we're bringing tonight.
Amen. And our host for this evening is the award-winning actor Sterling K. Smith. You talked a lot about In the Kitchen. Let's take a look now. And Sonny, say more once you take a look at this clip of In the Kitchen with Sonny Hostin.
I'm Sonny Hostin, and we call this segment In the Kitchen. Each week, we're going to chop it up like we do around our kitchen tables. I have one more question.
Yeah.
What was the moment that you realized that you're Black?
So Becky, I asked her to the 8th grade mixer. She said yes. Mm-hmm. She called me later on the phone and said, hey, Kelby, because I went by my middle name. How you doing? I'm like, I'm great. She said, listen, I talked to my parents about going out with you, and they said, they're not racist. And I was like, okay, that's the right head top. But when it comes to dating, they just don't feel as if the races should mix. And I'm like, cool, totally get it, understand, Teflon Don, because I felt like, if I allowed myself to feel too much, I didn't think I could afford to be hurt right now.
Yeah. Wow. Sonny, please say more.
That question, that in the, it's the moment question. What's fascinating to me, it's a question that we ask everyone around the kitchen table. And everyone has the moment when you realize, oh, I'm Black. I didn't realize that I would have that response from everyone. And it's something that we sort of came up with together. Sterling's was remarkable. And I'll leave it for the show. But he had to almost show her grace because she was upset at the end of it. I have my moment. And it's sort of that tie that binds so many of us as the descendants of enslaved people. And what's interesting is people have shared with me not only moments like that are painful, but almost also joyful moments. And I've enjoyed it so much because it really feels like you're around your kitchen table, second glass of wine, and people are really in it and talking about things like we kind of talk about on The View, things that you don't necessarily share in mixed company, but we're sharing it with everyone. And it's definitely an authentic conversation, especially that jumping off point, the moment. And I'm sure everyone that's listening now is thinking, when was my moment that I knew? For sure. And I share my moment also on the show.
Well, for the sake of full disclosure, the first fumble of this evening was mine. Sterling K. Brown. Yeah. My apologies. I renamed that brother on.
And who knew he went by Kelby?
Right? Right? Breaking news. Exactly.
Who knew?
Right, Marie, give us a sense of what else is in the shows coming up, the kinds of issues that we explore, the kinds of talent we have access to in this.
And, as Eric was saying, we wanted this to be that 360 experience, right? So I think one of the episodes that we're incredibly excited about is just the Black Joy episode, and the role in that comedy has played in helping Black people survive life in this country, and just the ways in which that shows up. And so I think we're incredibly excited just to delve into that space, and already the material that we're seeing from that hour is incredible. This year has been an amazing year in the world of sports activism. Not just in terms of, social justice, but politics writ large. And so I can't believe, I'm so thrilled that we've got Jamel Hill coming on as one of our hosts, and we really get into the thick of things with the role that Renee Montgomery and the women in the WNBA and the Atlanta Dream, and the role that they played, pushing back against their own ownership. And standing up for social justice, and ultimately doing the legwork that contributes to what we see in terms of the election of Georgia's first Black senator. And then the faith hour, my goodness, Byron, all roads end up leading us back to you in this space, but this idea of understanding where we are in the evolution of the Black church, the issues that are being confronted there. And then also some of the other issues around faith and Blackness. I'm excited that Lindsay Davis gets that first exclusive interview with Nick Cannon, who everybody knows and remembers was canceled after his anti-Semitic comments last summer. And he's been on his own journey. And most people would never know that he's been at Howard working on getting his graduate degree in theology. And so they spend a very, very interesting afternoon together. So just all in all, it is that rich, full experience where every week we want people to think, where are they going to take us next?
And it's also, just to add to that, we want to make sure that our hosts, our anchors, our correspondents are connecting to the stories as well. And Byron, you go back, it's not like you're doing a story about, Byron's doing this great story about the idea of the new Black church, and where does the church go in this moment of social activism. And for that story, we go with Byron, and he takes us back to his old church, right, Byron? And so we connect differently. I think we have an opportunity in this space to connect to the content on a more personal level as Black people, as Black journalists. And we hope to see that in each and every one of our segments.
Now, one of the things I certainly appreciate, and I know all of us have had this conversation, and all of us enter journalism at different stages of our lives, at different ages, and we're all at different stages of our careers right now. And this notion of sharing our Blackness as part of our journalism, right, is something we all have to sort of address in our own different way. But here's my question. I wanted to ask, to get sort of personal for a moment as we open up to our NABJ family to take some of their questions. And I want everyone to touch this. And Maria, I'll start with you. I know you told me earlier that when you watch Soul of the Nation tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern on ABC, that you'll be watching it with your mama, and you'll be watching it with your babies. And I know some about your background, your story. What's that mean to you to be in this space that you are Black excellence, right? You are magic, and we all who get to work with you know that. But to share this historic moment with those who brought you into this world, and those who you brought into this world.
I think that the thing for me that's special about this is that, in terms of my own background, my own origin story, I always say that I'm an African American. My parents met as international students at Howard University. So I was born in the US, but then I was raised until some of my formative years overseas in Africa, because they went home after they finished their studies. And then we only came back after a military coup in Liberia made it so that we couldn't be there. And my mother has been that person who has been like the Harriet Tubman of her family. She has been that person who was trying to get people to safety. She's been that person who has tried to have this family remember what felt like to be in a place and space where they felt like they were kings, and has been so deeply committed to teaching that history. And so for me to be in this moment where I feel like I am helping to make that contribution, it just lights up my entire soul. And so to do that with her, and then to do that with my my wackadoodle 2-year-old twins, who have been my COVID companions, my ride or dies, who look at me with those eyes, and when I'm reading them a story at night, they point to any brown person that they see in the book and they say, "Mama," you know. And so to know that we are doing more so that it won't have to be, it might be excellent, but it doesn't have to be exceptional. You know, it's everything.
You know, Sonny, you mentioned this earlier at the top of our conversation. You wrote beautifully about it in your book about your life. One of the things I love about you and your backstory, that it is the quintessential American story, right? To come from humble means and to build this great life. And now to be in this space where you get to take not only your professional experience, but your life journey, and put it out there for your family, for your children to see.
It means everything. You know, I think that it's really important to tell our stories, in the sense that I think so many times people want to know about your backstory in order to decide who you are, to determine how they should treat you. And I think that we get to determine how we get to be treated, how we get to be, what our worth is, what our value is. And so I've been just so honored to be able to tell my story, and to be able to tell our stories, especially with the support of ABC, with the support of my colleagues, with the leadership of someone like Marie, because you know, it's the American story. You know, we all know that alone we survive. And I think, unfortunately, that's been our story for so long. You know, my father, who's from Macon, from Augusta, Georgia, will often say, you know, it's like crabs in a bucket, it's like crabs in a barrel. And we have that thing sometimes, but together we thrive so much. And this project, for me, has been so personal, because our personal growth is such an attribute to the total community. And I love what Marie said in terms of our excellence doesn't have to be so exceptional. And I just think that this is an extremely special project to tell our stories of excellence. And there are so many across the board that you can show that it's, you know, my story is not exceptional. With the right opportunity, our stories aren't really, they're excellent, but they're not exceptional. And I love that we're doing it in this way. It's really groundbreaking, and it's really pretty spectacular to be a part of it.
Eric, my friend, I mean, I'm so very proud of you that you're the executive producer of this project, right? That it's your job to take Marie's vision and deal with the different personalities and make the magic of television. I also know some of your backstory. You're a kid from New Jersey. Your parents who raised you right, as they say, and who are activists. And I know they'll be watching tonight with your whole congregation, the church you grew up in. What's this night mean to you? Because you're someone who grew up at ABC News, and all of us know, certainly oftentimes the harsh reality for people of color in news organizations at the network and at local, where you start is where you die in the organization. But you're someone who started off at ABC News, and you've risen quickly, and now you're in this senior management elite position. What does this night mean to you?
You know, it is surreal, honestly. Like my parents are very, very proud of me and my little brother. They're like the most proud parents ever. And you met my parents at ABC. I have to stop bringing them to the building because they are the people that like go knocking on Diane Sawyer's door and stuff. Like literally, Sonny has met my cousins at The View. It's like, no, never again. So, you know, my family, we're all on a group text, all of us, all of the Johnsons, and they're just so proud. And the thing I'm just happy about, you know, my parents are both, and my dad is a writer, and my mom, and he's a brilliant storyteller, and my dad tells the best stories, and my mom, in her own unique way, is also just a great storyteller. And as much as, you know, I keep saying I want my parents to see themselves in this content, but the thing I'm excited about, I hope when they watch tonight that they can hear themselves in the content, because I help make it, you know. And so the beautiful thing that we get to do as journalists is, you know, Marie has these amazing ideas that are in her head. She's always thinking, and I'm the same way. You're always thinking. So is Robe. Always these ideas, all of us. And you get to think of, what would a thing called In the Kitchen look like? And then there it is. You make it. You get to do that in this field. And all of your past experiences, your parents, your godparents, your aunties, they all feed into what Sonny was able to pull out of everybody by asking those questions this past weekend. So I hope my entire First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens family in Somerset, New Jersey, you know, I hope that people hear that story and their stories within these pieces, because that just doesn't happen by accident. And so it's a really special day for me, and I think for all of us.
Amen. Our first question comes from a longtime NABJ member and friend, Peggy Lewis. Peggy asked, Maria, I'll give this to you. What are you hoping comes out of this program that has a lasting impact, and how will you define success?
I think we'll define success in a number of ways. I think, you know, I see one of our principal goals is expanding our overall audience of diverse viewers who are turning to us and trusting us and coming to us, not just for Soul of a Nation, but across the board as reporters and storytellers. So that to me is going to be a huge sign. And so, you know, if you get to the technical aspects of it, what I'm looking at is, how does this affect our overall audience composition? The other thing that I'm looking for, and we're blessed to be a part of a parent company that gives us that opportunity so that we get 2 bites of the apple. So yes, this premieres on network, and then tomorrow it will be on Hulu. And so I want to extend the learning so that we see, you know, how this content also informs and plays to those streaming audiences, because we know how much effort and energy and resources are going into investing in those spaces. And so I'm really coming to this with a bit of a critical eye and an opportunity for us to continue to demonstrate to folks that Black audiences want smart, rich, nonfiction content. Sorry to sound like a suit, but you know.
All right, this next question comes from Linda Coles. Similar question asked by Douglas McHuston. Forgive me if I mispronounced that, Douglas. Is there a call of action that will encourage, support further dialogue? Any plans for converting the content for use in the educational arena? And what happens next?
Well, throughout the series, you will see these things on screens. We call them snipes that come up that encourage people to go continue the conversation beyond what is happening on screen. We have Soul of a Nation Instagram, Soul of a Nation Twitter accounts, the Soul of a Nation hashtag. We hope everybody here on this call use it. And we wanted that the part of what we've spent, Marie and I and Robe have spent a lot of time trying to figure out how do we build these conversations out of just what we're going to see at 10 p.m. Eastern tonight. And so I think you'll hopefully see those extended conversations. We're trying to work with our ABC News Live team right now in the kitchens to make sure that we have those extended versions that are out there that we're able to push to continue those conversations. And so that's our plan. And every week, the hope is we get a little bit, okay, this worked, this didn't. It's going to take a little time to get exactly where we need to go, but we want people to continue these conversations beyond just tonight.
There's a question that came earlier. Thank you, Douglas. I see your response. Thank you for showing me so much grace. This comes from Tequila. Forgive me if
Tequila.
I'm Tequila?
Mhm.
Okay.
I know her from CNN.
Oh, cool. She asked, are the only people of color on your production team? And what's the makeup of your team as it relates to race? Thank you.
I don't have stats on, we have a very, very diverse team. Our team is not only Black people. All of our editorial leaders are people of color. That was something very important for us getting into this. But we have a variety among the Black people on the team. There is a variety of diverse opinions. We have deep conversations in every single Zoom call that we have. We have white people on the team that bring excellent ideas and have been really producing excellent content. And everybody's learning. We're all learning from this content. And it's important. This is something that's just very important to me as a manager, is that, I want to tell all types of stories and all types of stories within the Black community. That's what I'm focusing now, but I've told many, many types of stories. And I think everybody allows a chance for that to access that ability to do that. And so that was important to have. We have a very diverse group of people.
The only thing I would add is, it is wonderful seeing Eric and Robe as the co-executive producers of this series. This is the first time in ABC News' 70-year history that we have a series that's gone to prime time that is executive produced by Black men. The executive editorial producer on the series is a Black woman. So really the leadership team that is informing and helping to craft some of the storytelling and making a lot of these leadership and executive decisions for the show are Black talent. The other thing that's special is that we're also building off of the work that we've done to create a whole race and culture reporting effort around the news division. And so a lot of the seniors on these projects are folks who have stepped into those roles as senior producers for our race and culture reporting initiative. And the idea there was that we wanted to infuse and integrate fully diverse leadership in every show, every platform across the news division. And, I would say to Eric's point, when COVID struck last year, we were just in the early days of kicking off that effort. And so we hadn't fully staffed the unit, but it didn't take a rocket scientist to know that, as we say, when white America gets a cold, Black America gets pneumonia. Mm-hmm. So we knew that racial disparities were going to be a very important part of that story. And so we had to rally and to create a tiger team across the whole news division. And so we stood up a team of almost, I'd say 25 reporters and producers who were explicitly looking for every reporting opportunity to tell that disparity story. And many of those folks were not Black, but I wanted those folks to know that this was their story too, because we got to force multiply.
Amen. So this next question is something to you, and we have about 6 minutes left, so we want to get to as many questions as possible. And this question, I know Marie, like Sunny and I, we all had careers elsewhere before we came to ABC News. So here's this question comes from Jamila Bay. How do you think those of us who are not part of the ABC News family can learn from and emulate what you've done here? And Sunny, having been someplace else, different organizations have different cultures, right? So how do you think someone can implement what we're doing here at their shop?
Look, I'm a firm believer, again, sort of in the business case and the bottom line. Perhaps that comes from my time in the legal field. I know when I was at a private law firm, whenever we had initiatives, it was about what's the business case for this? How do you get something funded? You get something funded because you can prove a track record. You can prove that you can get clients to buy into this. And I think what has been really effective, at least in my sense, what I can tell, is that ABC has been really effective, again, when we have this kind of product, the consumers seem to relate to it. I mean, if you look at the viewership of The View, we're the #1 talk show in the country, and our viewers are predominantly African-American and Latino. That is just a fact. That is the daytime viewership. When you look at you know, a lot of our programming for Juneteenth, when you look at you know, the work that Lindsay Davis has done, when you look at the work that you're doing, Byron, the fact of the matter is we are successful because of the representation and because of the viewership. And so I think that that business case needs to be made across all networks. And we watch, and our talent brings the viewership, brings the advertisers, brings the demo, and they should take notice.
And it's not just, want to add to that, it's not just, Sunny is spot on. It's not just editorial either. Behind the scenes, diversity is good business. Having different types of people build content is good business. And so that's the thing. A lot of times this conversation that we have over and over can get lost in, you know, well, if we do that, it's like, this is it's, you know, we want people to support having diverse people on their teams for a variety of reasons. But at the end of the day, that's the case. The product will be better. What we're doing as business people will actually be better. And I think Marie has proven that to a great extent, is that the content, it all is connected. It's just all connected.
The only thing I would add to that is that, Jamila, I send this back to you because we have learned from you, Jamila. And I know Jamila because Jamila worked with me at Tell Me More with Michelle Martin at NPR. And the leadership that show offered in this space going back to 2006, there's a lot of that work that still informs the work that we're able to do now. So I do believe it's a virtuous cycle.
So guys, we got about 4 minutes left. So I'm gonna ask 2 questions and then Marie, take this first part and then everyone touch upon this in your way as we close out. So this question comes from Melanie Eversley. So I'm gonna ask you these 3 questions that just came in. Will you be tackling the issue of virtue signaling and the difficult position of Black Americans who have been called on to help enlighten mainstream organizations in the wake of the current racial reckoning, right? And that's something I'm sure all of us have to deal with. The question from anonymous question from a young journalist: what advice do you have to young and upcoming journalists? And this question just came in. I'll read it. We'll read it together. This from Elisa Richardson, journalism professor at USC's Annenberg School. Shout out to USC. Our students just launched a new Black vertical in our newsroom. Do you have any self-care tips for them as they build this new enterprise? So self-care tips, new enterprise, advice to young journalists, and the question as it relates to tonight, this whole notion about how do you tackle something that all of us have had to do, right? That to make the argument of why this is important.
You know, it's funny, I come at that from a fairly different perspective. I don't believe that it is our responsibility to teach, but I believe that we have been given the opportunity and the perch from which to do some important teaching. And so for those of us who are willing to step into that space, I believe that there are many people who need that. And so for me, I know it is draining at times. It is a tall order. You know, we've had our conversations with our folks who basically say, you know, that if you're Black, when we first talked with Sterling K. Brown, you know, that's one of the things he said in our offline conversation is that, you know, when you are Black, you have to show up differently. Like you carry all of these different levels of responsibility. And I get that. But I just feel like the stakes are too high. On the other piece, in terms of advice, it would be the advice that I would say folks like Michelle Martin, Michelle Norris. I'm going back to those earlier days of my first time around at ABC and then working with them other places, have always tried to teach me. And very recently, something that Paula Madison told me, which is that if you are not going to show up as yourself in these spaces, then it is a wasted opportunity. And so don't let anybody tell you that you have to shrink in these spaces or that you have to shape shift in these spaces in order to be successful, because it's fundamentally not true.
Eric, oh, sorry.
No.
Eric, then Sonny.
My advice is exactly what Marie said. One of my favorite, I went to the College of New Jersey. You have a favorite professor. My favorite journalism professor was Kim Pearson, and she was and is always herself. And I learn, you take things away from people besides the lessons that they're teaching you about the craft of journalism. And that's something that I tell people to this day: be yourself. It takes a while to get there, to find your voice. And I've moved all over ABC News, as everybody's alluded to. And it can, you gotta be, but like, take risks. I was when Marie came with this idea, I was nervous. This is a big thing. It's gonna get a lot of eyeballs. Can we do this? And you just have to jump head in and know that you can be confident in yourself. And I feel at ABC, I genuinely feel this, for better. I've always been able to be myself and been able to be confident with who I am there. And that's something I'm grateful for. And that's something I encourage other people. It's just step into yourself, find that voice, and keep pushing along as best you can.
Sonny, thank you, Eric. Sonny, as you close this out, I want to read one thing. I won't give this person's name, but they write, I honestly just feel sad, jealous actually. I haven't ever worked where such a thing was possible, let alone fathom. And Sonny, you were talking, I was thinking about all those inclusion task force meetings we sat in. And the fact that you're a lawyer was so awesome, because you were always taking notes, lawyer, and that kept people on point. And so if you can, as you give your closing answer, speak to the point that this wonderful moment we're at now at ABC News and the wonderful leadership of Marie Nelson that we all can celebrate. Didn't happen overnight, didn't happen easily, but it happened.
Wow, yeah. It didn't happen overnight. And people should know that. We've been working towards this for years. Marie has certainly been a godsend. We prayed for her, Byron.
Facts, prayed for.
We asked for her. She appeared. We had a lot of meetings with leadership, asking and praying for her. We actually started out our meetings in prayer, freaked a couple people out. True story. I think, as I mentioned before, that together we thrive, alone we just survive. I think this growth that we're seeing, at least at ABC under Marie's leadership, should be an attribute to our total community. And I know for me, this support that I've had with my brothers and sisters at ABC has been life-saving, life-changing. And when I prepare, at least for The View and in anything I do, I think about everything I will say, not just for how it will reflect on me and on my family, but how my words will reflect and reverberate on my community. Because again, I think that we're tied in this single garment of destiny. So I think what we're going to be doing tonight, while the person that presented the question says he or she's never experienced this, you are experiencing it now. I think that this is groundbreaking for all of us. I think you're going to be thankfully seeing this in newsrooms all over the country. And I think that you're part of this now. what's affecting us, one of us directly, is affecting all of us indirectly. And
Amen.
there you have it.
Amen. Sonny Hostin, Eric Johnson, Marie Nelson, to the families that you represent, for all of us who you represent in the NEBJ family. Thank you. God bless. See everybody at 10 o'clock tonight Eastern for
10 o'clock.
Oh,
yes.
Oh,
Love a Nation.
everybody.